Hey, what are you doing? How are you? Hey, I'm Nick Digilio. Thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. Hey, you can check me out. I got two podcasts at radiomisfits.com, the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. They are also available on every single platform, your Spotify, your Apple, your Amazon, all everywhere that you get podcasts. You should subscribe right now. It's free. The Nick D Podcast, which is an entertainment pop culture podcast where I review movies and we talk about TV and books, and I have great guests. Esmeralda Leon is my co-host. It's very similar to what I used to do on the radio. Very funny, very entertaining, and pop culture and entertainment related. Tuesdays, Fridays, brand new episodes of the Nick D Podcast. The other podcast I host is That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years, which is all about Saturday Night Live and my love for SNL. 48 seasons worth of material there, so I'm not going to run out. And I have guests sometimes I don't. It is about whole seasons or whole episodes or cast members or things like that. It's all about Saturday Night Live and how great Saturday Night Live is. And every Wednesday, a brand new episode of That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years, an SNL podcast drops. So check out those two podcasts, radiomisfits.com. Subscribe, listen, they're free. You can check out my videos here. You can check out my videos at Patreon. You can listen to me on the radio. On Fridays, I am on the Steve Cochran Morning Show on WLS AM 890 here in Chicago. It's the best morning drive show in Chicago. It's not even fucking close, by the way. The other morning drive shows, especially on GN, morons, suck compared to Steve. And I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm the movie critic for the Steve Cochran Show. You can hear me Fridays mornings on WLS AM 890. Check it out. All this stuff that I do is free. The videos, the podcasts, the reviews, the radio stuff. It's all free, not charged. So you need to go to patreon.com/NickDShow and donate some dough to help keep these things going. Put a little food in my fridge. Really helps out a lot if you do it, and you'd be awesome, and you can go to sleep and feel good about your humanity. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Go there now, pick a tier, donate, be a patron. You'll feel better about yourself, and you'll help keep this thing going. Seriously, I would really appreciate a little dough. Donate some money right now. We're going to do some bonus stuff, materials coming up, and bonus videos and stuff like that for you to donate. So, patreon.com/NickDShow. Donate now. Thank you. Okay, reviewing movies here. So, Ari Aster is a really interesting filmmaker whose third movie, his newest movie, is called Beau Is Afraid, which I'm going to review right now. Oh, look at this. I forgot I had this hat on. Oh, look. Can you see? Can you see that? Hey, there you go. That's from Ari Aster. That's Toni Collette being a great mom in Hereditary. Anyway, Ari Aster is the director of aforementioned Hereditary, which is one of the greatest horror movies of the past 30 years, easily, and Midsommar, or Midsommar, I'm going to call it Midsommar, which he made a few years later. So those are the two movies that he's made. They're both very intense. They're both very weird. They're both gut-churning, really suspenseful, very eerie, very heavy movies that are also hilarious. So they're great horror movies. They're very intense and strange. They will put you on the edge of your seat. They will mix up your guts, and they will also make you laugh your ass off in a very original way. This guy has got a great style. He works great with actors. He makes very unique, crazy, horror, strange movies, okay? And I love his first two movies. I love Hereditary and I love Midsommar. I love them both a lot. Like a lot. Especially Hereditary, which I think is one of the best movies of the past, 30 years. And Toni Collette, one of the greatest performances ever. So anyway, I love his movies, and his latest is a big magnum opus, his third movie. And it's called Beau Is Afraid. And it stars Joaquin Phoenix. And it's been getting a lot of buzz. It is 3 hours long. It is definitely the most indulgent of all his movies, and his movies have already been indulgent. It's even longer than Midsommar, and Midsommar is a very long movie. And I'm not going to get into or try to even explain the plot or what happens in the movie. I'll do a very, very Cliff Notes kind of version of what happens, because it is so absurd and so ridiculous to try to make any kind of narrative or literal sense out of this movie. Because it's not. It's a work of surrealism that jumps through time and blah, blah, blah. It's essentially, at the beginning of the movie, you, the viewer, are being birthed. You are Beau. And Beau, at the beginning of the movie, you're coming out of the birth canal, you are sticking your head out of a vagina, and you are Beau, and Beau is being born, and you hear the grunting and and it opens up, and it's about a 3.5-minute sequence where you're squeezing your way out as Beau from a vagina from the birth canal. And that's about as subtle as this movie gets in terms of what's it about. And it's basically about this baby at the beginning, you seeing it from the point of view of inside the birth canal coming out of a vagina. That's you. That's what you're seeing. And it's essentially, basically, this motherfucker trying to go back to it. It's 3 hours of a guy coming out of a birth canal that you see, that you come out of, and then it's essentially his journey to basically get right back into that birth canal. It is the mother of all mother issue movies. And I mean that in kind of an interesting, good way, and also in a very negative way. So a lot of stuff happens in this movie. He's gonna go see his mom, and then like his mom dies, and it's about him dealing with trying to get to his mom, trying to get to her, and then it flashes back to when he was a kid and how his relationship with his mother has affected everything. He also lives in like this alternate sort of weird city universe where there's war in the streets and all kinds of insane shit happening, where people come in and take over his apartment. There's homeless people, there's violence, people getting killed. There's a lot of violence and murder and dismemberment all in the streets, and it's just him trying to get home to see his mother. That's essentially what it is. It's a 3-hour journey about a guy who's got major mother issues, trying to get home to see his mom in a really fucked up, crazy, violent, twisted, insane, Freudian world. That's essentially, at its base, that's what it's about, but it goes off into these other tangents. It jumps through time. It talks about what happened to this character when he was a kid and his relationship with a young girl that he loved that's affected his entire life sexually and with the opposite sex. It's about this overpowering, insane mother complex and relationship with his mother. It jumps to where he's an old guy. At one point, it becomes an animated movie. It gets into science fiction. There are horror elements of it. There are a million dicks, both symbolically and right on the screen. It is there are more dicks and moms in a movie jammed into this movie than any other movie ever made. It's not subtle. It's over the top. It's always visually interesting, and there are sections of it that are brilliant, that go way into fantasy world surrealism. Sometimes it's scary, sometimes it's funny, often funny. And for the most part, I liked it, the less I think about it. And when I first saw the movie, when I walked out, I did not like the last 15 minutes at all. I don't like the way the movie ends at all. The last 15 minutes are a complete fucking ripoff of another movie. And it's weird too, because the movie's 3 hours long, and for 2 hours and 45 minutes, he is essentially making a strikingly original movie that no other director has ever tried to make. There's a little bit of Mother in it. Darren Aronofsky's brilliant and much better movie. Much, much better movie. Darren Aronofsky's movie Mother is, I don't know, roughly 70,000 times better than Beau Is Afraid. So there's a little bit of that, and then it goes into Charlie Kaufman territory, which I don't fucking care about. Charlie Kaufman is a lot of this, as far as I'm concerned. So it jumps into the annoying world of being kind of a takeoff on Charlie Kaufman, or very close to the sensibility of Charlie Kaufman, who I just find pompous, fucking pretentious. And I've liked some of his stuff, but for the most part, I'm done with Charlie Kaufman. Fuck him. And there's a lot of Charlie Kaufman in this movie, and there's a lot of Darren Aronofsky's Mother in this movie, only not as good. But at the last 15 minutes, it's a complete ripoff of, I'm not going to say what it is. It's a ripoff of an Albert Brooks movie. Let me just say that. It's a blatant ripoff of an Albert Brooks movie, beat for beat. And I didn't like that. Like a movie that strives to be completely original, that has sections of it that are unlike anything you've ever seen in a movie before. And it's got the Ari Aster, like, sense of humor and dark elements to it. And then suddenly, the last 15 minutes of the movie owes all of its last 15 minutes to another much better movie that Albert Brooks made 30 years ago. So that's my first feeling. Now, watching it is a pretty unique and kind of wonderful experience. I am recommending it. Although, as days go by, as me reading more about what people think of this movie and me thinking about my experience watching it, the more I think about it, the less I like it. Now, I'm going to probably end up seeing it again. I'm not going to rush off to see it again, because the negativity in the back of my mind that I felt when the movie ended has now jumped to the forefront. I really wanted to like it because I love Hereditary. I love Midsommar. I think Ari Aster is one of the most interesting and great filmmakers, especially in surrealism and horror. And I wanted to love this movie, and I went in so excited to see it. And the circumstances upon which I saw this movie were interesting too, because it was a super it was on April Fool's Day. So the idea was that we were all showing up to a screening of the director's cut of Midsommar. But when you got there, you realized that it wasn't and there's Ari Aster at the Alamo Drafthouse in New York, in Brooklyn, live saying, "Hey, we're going to show you Beau Is Afraid." So the original invite from the press that I got, the PR people that invited the press, they invited me, was that you will see the director's cut of Midsummer with a special 10-minute preview of Beau Is Afraid. And I wasn't going to go at first. I wasn't going to go because I've seen Midsummer. I've seen the director's cut like 800 times. And I was like, 10 minutes of Beau Is Afraid, I don't want to go. But, people were telling me you should go. And the PR person, sent me an email and was like, "Nick, you should probably go." And then I was like, oh, they're going to pull a switch and bait, which is what Alamo Drafthouse does. And when you get there, it's April Fool's Day. When you get there, you think you're going to see Midsummer and 10 minutes of Beau Is Afraid, but they're going to show the entire, and they did. So they screened Beau Is Afraid. That was the thing. And there was a whole room full of us. And it was at the Alamo Drafthouse in Wrigleyville. And I'll get to that in a minute. I'll get to that fucking place in a minute. So anyway, so we get there, and I'm very excited about it. It doesn't open for 3 weeks, and I'm excited, and I love Hereditary, and I love Midsummer, and I'm with it, and I'm thinking it's funny and great. And then as it goes on, I'm like, oh, this is great, and it's interesting. And then there were sections of it that I didn't find as interesting, but I kept saying, oh, it's great anyway. And then I hated the last 15 minutes, and I walked out, and I'm like, it's great, except for the last 15 minutes. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, nah, it's not so great. And it isn't. Here are the things that I have a problem with. First of all, it's stylistically, it's crazy, it's surreal, and it is the mother of all mother issue movies. Freud would have a fucking field day with this movie. It makes Pink Floyd The Wall look like it's a healthy relationship with your mom. Like the relationship that Pink has with his mother in Pink Floyd The Wall, that's relatively, that's normal. That's a healthy relationship compared to what the shit that Beau has with his mom in this movie. And it's got some great people in the cast. I have issues with Joaquin Phoenix. Sometimes I like him, sometimes I hate him. For the most part, I find him annoying, and I kind of want to punch him in the mouth, pretty much. And I wanted to punch him in the mouth during most of this movie. I find there's just something about Joaquin Phoenix. There are certain things that I think his performances work in, and other things where I just find him fucking annoying. And as a human, he annoys the fuck out of me. So I think the guy is a dick in real life, like a methody, pretentious, pompous dick in real life. And that really shows itself in a lot of movies. Like The Joker is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. He's horrible in it, and he fucking did not deserve an Academy Award. And I think he's a dick off screen, and I've heard stories from people who've worked with him that he is a massive dick to work with. And sometimes I like him in movies, but sometimes I don't. And this movie, both of those Joaquins show up. There are certain scenes where I like him, and certain scenes where I'm like, fuck off. But he bothers me. So you've got your lead, who's an actor that I run hot and cold on, very, very hot and very, very cold on. So he's the lead, and it goes through all these stylistic changes. And again, it's not subtle by any means. This is it's a guy who gets birthed out of a birth canal and tries to get back into his mom's pussy for the rest of the movie. And there are literal references to dicks in it. Giant dicks show up. It is about how a mother fixation can fuck up your entire life and ruin your relationships, ruin your sex life. That's what this whole movie is about. It also takes place in some nightmare world where the city that he lives in is violent and people are getting killed and dismembered. And it's this weird, violent, weird city that he lives in, and it's about this alternative world that he lives in. He goes through all these adventures. Basically, he's trying to get to his mom's house. He gets a call from his mom to go visit her, and then he tries to visit her, and that's basically what it is. It's him trying to go to see his mom. Some other complications involving his mom happen, and it's just this journey to get from this insane, violent, crazy cityscape that he lives in, where people are murdered in the streets, and there's war going on, and people are breaking into his apartment, murders, all kinds of mayhem are happening in the world. And it's him basically desperately trying to get to see his mother, which is essentially what his whole life is about. It goes back in time to see how a relationship he had with a young girl when he was a kid affects his entire life, his sex life and everything, and how his mother has permeated every single part of his life, blah, blah, blah. Mother issues. It's a 3-hour movie about mother complex. Okay, so there are sections of it that I love. The imagination on display is great. There are parts of it that scream the great Ari Aster, the guy who made this great movie and Midsummer, but then there are sections of it that are obvious. There are sections of it that owe a great deal to Darren Aronofsky's movie Mother, which is 50,000 times better than this movie. So there are sections of it where it's like, yeah, you saw a couple of Aronofsky movies. Congratulations, Ari. I saw them too. But yeah, people are going to compare it to Aronofsky's Mother, but Mother, the Aronofsky movie, is a million times more interesting and a million times better than this movie. It also jumps into deeply into the Charlie Kaufman territory. Charlie Kaufman can basically kiss my ass. I'm done with Charlie Kaufman. His little eccentricities and all that shit. He's repetitive. He's pretentious. His shit is the same over and over and over again. And I'm done with the, I was never a huge fan of being John Malkovich, and now I can't stand it. And a lot of it's like this Schenectady, New York bullshit that people love. Philip Seymour Hoffman. This movie owes a lot to that fucking movie. And I've never really been on board with Charlie Kaufman. In fact, now I hate Charlie Kaufman, and I find his shit annoying and pompous and pretentious, and fuck him. And there's a lot of Charlie Kaufman. When this movie dives into the Charlie Kaufman world, it dives in head first, and I want out. And then the last 15 minutes of this movie, which I have a major issue with, is a complete ripoff of an Albert Brooks movie from 30 years ago. Now, I won't go into it, but for a movie that, for 2 hours, and this movie's 3 hours long, for a movie that's 2 hours and 45 minutes of where Ari Aster is flexing his muscles and being as incredibly original and surreal as you could possibly imagine, not owing anything to any other movies, or at least he hopes, to basically beat for beat ripping off an Albert Brooks movie from 30 years ago in the last 15 minutes of this movie. And then that's the way the movie ends. Now, when I first saw this movie, I was very hyped to see it. I was very excited. And even when I wasn't having a great time watching it, I was like, okay, this is great stuff. It's really interesting. And even during the last 15 minutes, which I didn't like, when I first saw the movie, I did not like the last 15 minutes. I was like, I love everything until the last 15 minutes. And then when I walked out of the movie, as time went on, I started to think about it, the less I liked it. And the more problems became very up to the forefront. Like when I first walked out, I was like, man, 2 hours and 45 minutes of greatness and Ari Aster going nuts and it's awesome. And then 15 minutes of ripping off Albert Brooks, but I'll forgive you. But then that 15 minutes led into me going, wait a minute, there's too much Charlie Kaufman in this. He owes way too much to Darren Aronofsky. Some of this stuff is just blatant and uninteresting. It's not as funny as I thought it was. Some of the performances aren't that great. And fuck Joaquin Phoenix. So I now don't like the movie nearly as much as I did on the day that I saw it. While I was watching it, I was digging it. And the more I think about it, the less I like it. I still recommend you see it, especially if you're a fan of his first two movies. It's not even in the same ballpark as Midsommar, or especially Hereditary, which is still the best movie he's ever made. But it's definitely interesting and it's worth seeing. But the more I think about it, the less I like it. Too much Charlie Kaufman, too much Darren Aronofsky, too much Joaquin Phoenix being pompous ass, dipshit, asshole Joaquin Phoenix. Some of the other cast members are great. The best part of this movie is Patti LuPone. She shows up near the end of the movie as his mother, and Patti LuPone steals this movie. She's, as far as performances go, without question, by far, by leaps and bounds and miles, Patti LuPone's the best thing in this movie. Deserves an Oscar nomination. That's how fucking great she is. And there are sections of it that are great. There's an animated section that's kind of fun, and there's a section where he finds a theater company in the middle of the forest, which is my favorite part of the movie. It's a huge part of the movie. It's my favorite part of the movie. There are things in it to admire, things in it that are hilarious, things in it that are dark and twisted. All the nightmare city, war, violent street stuff is really terrific at the beginning of the movie. There are great things in it, and I'm recommending it, but as a whole, it's derivative of other better movies. It's derivative of Charlie Kaufman, who is not better, who in fact is worse, and you shouldn't be derivative of Charlie Kaufman because fuck him. And this last 15 minutes is a blatant beat-for-beat fucking ripoff of an Albert Brooks movie from 30 years ago, which is 9,000 times better than this. So, the more I think about it, the less I like it. It's the least interesting movie that he's made. Like I mentioned before, Pink Floyd The Wall. This movie owes a lot to Pink Floyd The Wall. It owes a lot to Darren Aronofsky's mother. It owes a lot to Charlie Kaufman. So it's not nearly as original as I felt it was while I was watching it. When I thought about it, afterwards I was like, oh yeah, we've seen this kind of stuff before and we've seen it better. I think it's a misstep for Ari Aster. It's nowhere near as good as Midsommar or Hereditary. 3 hours in length, it's too long. And some of the stuff he does is ballsy, literally, and interesting, and it's definitely worth seeing. It's definitely a much too interesting big swing at the plate to miss. And I admire the fact that he got up and he had the balls to make the choices and do the things that he... There are things in this movie that are fucking ridiculously insane, that are just like you laugh because they're so crazily nuts and weird and brutal and explicit. So he's swinging for the fences here, and sometimes the ball goes over the fence, but a lot of times it's a foul ball. And I was very excited, as I mentioned, we got kind of tricked into seeing this movie. And I will say this, maybe this added to my experience, but I saw it at the Alamo Drafthouse in Wrigleyville. And it was the most miserable experience I've had at a movie, maybe ever. I'm never going back to that place. That is not a place where I want to see movies. That is not how you see movies. I don't give a shit. People love it. It's hipster. It's fucking Wrigleyville hipster, cinema hipster hangout for people who are these, you know, for the you know, the Wrigleyville hipsters, you know, who want to think they know movies. These are the people that show up at the Music Box and laugh at shit that they shouldn't laugh at. And these are the people the younger people at the Music Box who show up and think they know movies and they don't know their asses from holes in the ground. But they're stopping there before they go to the Wrigleyville bar to do shots of Jaeger. It's like a thing to do now. It's like a hipster Wrigleyville thing. Let's go to a movie. Let's go to an old movie and laugh at it, and then we'll go get drunk at Tunes, or we'll go to, you know, Yaxie's and have drinks. Well, those people are the ones that are dominating the Alamo Drafthouse. I went into the Alamo Drafthouse. I hated it. I hated the way it looked. There's a whole wing dedicated to John Hughes. Really? You want to call yourself a place to celebrate cinema, and you're dedicating a fucking wing to John fucking Hughes? And you walk in, they've got a pseudo video store where you can go, and isn't it retro and isn't it hip? Remember VHS? Isn't this hip? Let's drink a $12 pint of beer. And everything, there's posters on the wall. It's dedicated in the most forced, uneducated, hipster, cinematic way possible. As soon as I walked in, I knew, like, hey, look, it's a VHS store. Remember those were cool? We're hipsters. We're in our 20s. VHS, that was cool. Our parents had that shit. You know, and then they think they're cool because there's a Videodrome poster in the corner. Fuck off. The people who own it, the people who run it, they don't understand cinema. They think they do. What they understand is getting hipster dipshits in Wrigleyville to go to movies that they're supposed to like and charge them $20 for a fucking burger. I hated the place. And dining in a movie theater, no. Going to a movie is different than fucking having dinner. You have dinner before or after a movie. And having wait staff and people running around through the entire fucking movie is distracting. You have your little table, you're at like a desk in school, and you have a light. Every seat has a light so that you can summon the waiter or waitress to get your refill on your $40 fucking beer. Meanwhile, you're trying to watch the movie while people are ducking in front of you and running past you with burgers and with popcorn and with it. It's nonstop. So there's nothing but distraction with people running around the theater serving other people. There are lights on every seat which you can see out of the corner of your eye, and the audience members are mostly dickheads. Now, I saw this movie with a bunch of critics and a bunch of people who were invited by PR people. So, even in that circumstance, where the people in that room knew how to behave, it was annoying. With servers running around, you know, like ducking in front of you. Still trying to not be distracted, but it's distracting. There are people running around in a movie theater in front of you, bringing trays of fucking food that smell to people next to you. So there's somebody next to you eating like fish and chips. You can smell that. It's coming in. Do I want that? Do you want that? So somebody's eating a $30 fish and chips and drinking a $20 fucking beer, okay? Next to you, and this is going on the whole movie. Lights are popping up on seats around you so that while you sit in your fucking schoolhouse desk, you can see other people being served food while you're trying to watch a fucking movie. It's bullshit. It was one of the most miserable movie-going experiences I've ever had in my life, and I'm never, ever going back. That is not how you watch movies. If you are a pseudo-cinephile, dipshit hipster from Wrigleyville, that's exactly how you should watch a movie. And I hope that all the people that actually go to the Music Box, who are those dipshits, just end up going to Alamo. Go there, because that's exactly where you should be. You should be watching a movie at the Alamo Drafthouse, not at a real movie theater like the Music Box. The Alamo Drafthouse is tailor-made for hipster, pseudo-intellectual, bullshit cinephiles who are like going to have a great time mocking a movie and drinking $40 beers before they go to Yaxie's and do shots. It's bullshit. And on top of that, the biggest theater is less than 100 seats. So everybody's like, yeah, but it's a great movie-going experience, and they care about, you know, they tell you to turn your cell phones off, and they're very strict about it. Anybody who has a cell phone gets kicked out. Oh yeah, the cell phone stuff, that's great. Okay, what about the actual people who work there, who are running around through the theater the entire running time of the movie? What about the little lights on the seats that are there so that people can get more food and more beer? That's just as distracting as anybody with a cell phone. So the people who are like, oh man, the place is great, you can't have your cell phone on, they're very strict about that. Oh yeah, that's so that they can distract you without the cell phone by having lights on seats and servers running around in a movie theater. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. So I really think that the miserable experience that I had at the Alamo Drafthouse, which is a fucking blight in the world of movie theaters, really affected how much I enjoyed or didn't enjoy Beau Is Afraid. Maybe I would have liked it more if I wasn't in the middle of a fucking shitty venue that's the most annoying place to see a movie ever. Maybe I would have liked the movie a little bit more, but I wasn't. I was in a really annoying venue, watching it in a fucking unbelievably, pompously hipster environment that I couldn't get the fuck out of. When that movie was over, I got the hell out of there. I didn't hang out and look at the crazy displays and the John Hughes, dedication and, hey, look, there's some VHS tapes over there. That's cool, man. Like some 20-somethings paying $20 for a beer to go, VHS was cool, I remember that. You don't remember dick. Anyway, I know I sound pretty angry, but it is anti-movie-going experience. It's an anti-movie-going experience. Yeah, man, let's get a $25 burger and watch a movie, in a theater that has 20 seats while we're sitting in a classroom chair while waiters and waitresses are running around in front of us. Yeah, that sounds like a great, great cinematic experience. So anyway, add to that a movie that I found very disappointing. So there it is. So, Beau Is Afraid. The more I think about it, the less I like it. But at this point, I'm still saying that you should see it, especially if you like Hereditary, and especially if you like Midsommar. But anyway, there's a lot of great stuff in it. I will say this, it's incredibly original and over the top and surreal and whatever. I just don't like it as much as all the other. Everybody around me seemed to love it. Everybody, around me, they seem to love it. I've had conversations with people who think it's brilliant. They think it's one of the best movies of the year. I don't know. I think it's a misstep, but an interesting misstep. And other movies about mother issues are much more interesting and much better than this one. So if you're going to see it, try not to see it at the Alamo Drafthouse unless you want to pay $40 for a beer and have a server run in front of you for 3 hours while you sit in a schoolhouse desk. So there you go. All right. Anyway, I was disappointed in Beau Is Afraid, but I still think you should see it. I don't know. Even though I have tremendous amount of flaws, and the more I think about it, I don't like it, I still think you should check it out because Ari Aster is an endlessly interesting filmmaker, at least that much. So anyway, but this movie's better. This movie's much better. All right. Thank you.